Hello, good morning, good evening, whatever time you're watching. Welcome to Mental Fitness. I'm with my co host, Scott Aaron Rogers, a dear friend of mine, and we are talking about an incredibly personal, unimaginably terrible thing that happened to Scott, and we're going to really get into it. This episode is about grief. Scott lost his son about 11 and a half months ago, and this is one of the reasons why we met. One of the ways Scott was dealing with his grief was pouring his heart into his own show called Who's Left, where he was trying to help, or he is trying to help Indiana be better. And we met that way. And then I found out what happened, and we are now really good friends and work on Project Next together. And we're going to talk about what had happened and why are we so scared to talk about grief? Why are we so scared to ask someone about a loss? It's a culture thing and it's not healthy. And I want to get into it with Scott. How can we help him? I imagine most of you watching have either lost someone close to you or you love someone that's lost someone close to them. And so the whole point of this is to let's approach grief differently. Let's love and respect and support those dealing with it. So I would just like to thank you. Thank you, Scott, for doing this with us. How are you feeling today? How's it going?
Sarah, thanks for having me here, and I'm glad we get a chance to have a heartfelt, emotional talk like this. But it's never it's never easy. No matter how much time passes, really, and it's been a little over a year now. It was January, so we're about 15 months on, I think,
Okay.
or yeah, about 14 and a half. It's yeah, it it hurts every day.
And this episode is going to be difficult. It is live.
Yeah.
I am just going to be supporting you, Scott. So you let me know what you need. If you need to go off camera for a few minutes and I can talk, you just let me know and know that everybody listening cares about you, whether they're friends with you or they're just another human being. We love you and support you. I just want to give love to your wife, Allison, and I just want to say a little bit about how I found this out, and then we'll get into it. So I've talked before about how we met at the delegates
It was at
convention.
the state
The-
Democratic Party convention
yeah,
last year.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you invited me on the show after you heard me speak. And then I was getting ready to be on your show and I was listening to other episodes of Who's Left. And I listened to the Ryan Still episode, which was great. Ryan's a friend of mine that helps with Indiana Rural Summit. And on that episode, you just casually mentioned that you had lost your son. And I was like, what? And then we did our episode together. And then you stopped recording and then I asked you about it and we talked for about a half an hour. And I've been thinking about that ever since. I'm just like, how is this friend of mine doing this? And I knew it was one of the ways you were grieving, that you were putting your brain power and your heart into something important so
Yeah.
that you could escape the gaping pain inside you. I get that. And that is one way people grieve. And I appreciate that you picked something that helps society. And it just kind of made me think, I want to be friends with this person. He seems remarkable. And also, he probably needs just as many people to care about him because he lost his son. And so I whenever Tim Peck and I started Project Next, I was like, I would like Scott on this. He's a friend of mine and he's working really hard to try to save Indiana and he's also been through something terrible and he's braver than most people because of that. When you lost a child, you're more willing to say something that might anger someone. You're not as afraid of upsetting people's emotions because you've lost a child. And you stand out as just a remarkable human being. So Thank you for doing what you're doing, and let's get into it. I would like you to tell us about your son Lane, who I just found out his name because I haven't even asked you until today. So tell us about your son and what happened, and just know we have a warm blanket of love around you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. So my son Lane, he was born in 2004, and when my ex-wife was pregnant with him, there were some maybe like unusual numbers on the test. Some tests that her OBGYN ran. She wasn't exactly sure what was going on, but she had some concerns. So we had a planned C-section, and she just wanted to make sure that she did things as planned. Now, um, when Lane was born, um, he came out floppy. Like, he had really low muscle tone, um, and just the the tiniest, weakest little cry, was
Oh,
the saddest thing I ever heard, but, and so he got whisked away to the incubator, right, and held in a held in a glass box basically
yeah.
for days, and, we didn't even really get to hold him, and we were living up in Northwest Indiana at the time, and, the hospital where he was born wasn't really equipped to care for his complications, long term, so he transferred up to Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago,
Oh wow.
um, and so, yes, he was diagnosed with, hypotonia. That's the low muscle tone. He had a dislocated hip
No.
when he was born. He had, um, a high arched palate. You know what a cleft palate is? Where the top of your mouth actually, like, isn't fully enclosed and it connects to your, like, sinus cavity. It
Uh-huh.
He didn't have that. It was hot, close to that, but not quite. And then, some digestive issues too. He, because he was weak and had low tone, he struggled to, cough up, mucus on his own. He needed, you know, a lot of, medical assistance, right? And, so he stayed up there at Children's in the NICU for it was like 3 months. He was born in
Wow.
he didn't come home till, like, Halloween,
Wow.
and it was a rough time. My ex-wife was, recovering for, C-sections, major surgery,
Mhm.
and then she had a heart condition arise, like, in the week after,
Wow.
after giving birth, and she wound up back in the hospital herself. So she was there for a few days. Lane was up at Children's. I was working full time and then trying to drive back and forth and see everybody. It was a
That
real rough.
sounds like a really stressful, really hard time, emotionally, because you're hoping to have a healthy baby. You have you do not have a healthy baby, and then you don't know what your future is gonna be like. So, you obviously love your child immensely and feel this pain for what he's going
Yeah,
through at birth. And then you're trying to predict what your life's going to look like, and then your wife is going through health problems. It sounds incredibly difficult. I'm sorry you went through all of that. um did things improve after that? Was it just a lot of learning and constantly taking care of Lane and his needs?
we had to learn. Well, before they let us take him home, we had to learn how to do, infant CPR. We had to learn how to intubate him if necessary.
That's put a tube down his throat
Uh
so that
huh.
he could
Uh
breathe
huh. It was for feeding.
for feeding. Okay.
Um, they we wound up not having to tube feed. They gave him a G tube. It's a gastrostomy tube. It's a little port that goes directly into your stomach, and you can hook up a tube to it and do tube feedings that way.
My
He
my uncle had Down syndrome. He passed away a few years ago, my dad's younger brother, and they did that with him the last like 10 or so years of his life because he had a lot of problems eating. And then once that happened, his quality of life improved a lot. So have heard of that before.
Yeah, I mean, it kept him alive. Lane was never able to take solid food. He used that feeding tube his whole life, and but he did learn how to drink um, in his own way. Lane could never quite close his mouth
Hmm.
because he had a his chin was sort of malformed also, but um, it still it was he was just the sweetest little boy, and he came home and we loved him and cared for him, and um but it was still a stressful time, and um in addition to like to being working adults with jobs and parents, which is hard for anybody. We also kind of had to learn how to become medical personnel too. It was a lot, but and I think her and I, my ex-wife and I, now our relationship wasn't great at
I
that
think
point
that's
to
very
begin with,
understandable. I
and
think
yeah.
that what you two had to deal with emotionally, it makes sense that it would be very hard. And I imagine you have a lot of grace for both you and your ex-wife about that time. I, you know,
uh yeah, I mean, we were probably pretty upset with each other and for a long time. But we get along remarkably well now, and all these years later. Um, and that's a positive, I
that is a
think.
positive. I'm grateful that you all were able to get there because I'm sure it was incredibly difficult what you all went through. And it's a whole nother discussion. We should do another show on it sometime just about parents that have these kids that not that long ago the children, the babies would have most likely died early on, but now because of medical advancements they can live, but it puts a lot of stress and strain on the parents that of course are going to do this. They love their
Of
children,
course, yeah,
but it doesn't make the extra work evaporate and not matter. We're human beings, it's going to be hard on us. So you already are a braver, amazing person because you learned how to be a fantastic dad to Lane, who had all these extra needs and requirements. You told a story one time, I believe it was on a Project Next episode or a Who's Left episode, I don't know which one, with me, where you said you were taking Lane to college and you would stop on your lunch break and help him use the restroom. And I just
hmm
thought, wow, this parent had to do so many more things than the average parent has to for our children. And there are many, many parents out there with special needs children doing the same thing. And I just really, I just really was unaware of how much extra parents have to do with special needs kids, and that's one thing we don't talk about because it's sad. And in our culture we
yeah,
don't like to talk about things that are sad, and it's like, well, how are we going to grow and comfort these people, and how are we going to help special needs parents better if we don't talk about it? So this is a whole nother topic we should get into. I know some mad voter people that have special needs kids, and that's one of the big reasons why they've gotten involved with
yeah.
mad voters, which is an organization that calls out what's going on at the Indiana government. Um, because they need more from public education to support their children, and we just need to talk about it more.
Yeah, yeah, and I could go on a whole rant, and I don't wanna turn this into a political
And
show, but,
we can talk about that later. We can do another episode on it because it's something I don't kn I'm someone who cares and wants to help special needs, kids and their parents. I want to, but I don't know enough about it because my kids aren't in a wheelchair and don't have
yeah.
those needs right now, at least thankfully. So, okay, so keep going. Um, you can sum this up however much you want.
Yeah, no, well, so anyway, Lane's mom and I separated and wound up divorcing, and, she moved back down here to Bloomington to be kinda closer to her, her network, her circle of friends to have, support with him, and, I was still up there, and I couldn't stand to be away from him, so I wound up moving back down here several months later
Oh,
myself,
wow. What and
and,
that and how old
yeah,
was Lane then?
this is he was just a year old right
Okay.
around this time, and, we shared custody, we would, hand him back and forth, I probably worked too much and didn't spend enough time with him when he was, really young, but that, increased over the years, the amount of time we got to spend together, where and, you know, toward the end, he was probably with me more than he was with his mom, just, as he grew, he kinda needed more care and a little more physical assistance, which I
Mhm.
was
As they got
more able
bigger,
to
right?
provide than she was, yeah.
Right, right, that makes sense.
Um, but, he went to school like the other kids. Um, he did well in school. He was a smart kid academically. That was the thing he had to overcome because, he was physically disabled and he used a chair and, he couldn't he couldn't talk the way the rest of us talk, I say. Like, Lane could speak, but because he couldn't fully close his mouth, and had some, deformities in there, he had to learn how to do it on his own and
Aw.
form letters and find alternate ways of forming the same sounds that maybe, like
And
you
so
and
he
I would
did figure
put
them
our teeth
out.
together or our lips together to make a sound, and
Aw.
he figured out how to do it, himself, and just stubborn little shit, I'll tell you, because we always tried to get him to, like, use a iPad to type out what he's like, "No, I can talk. I'm gonna" like, If you can't understand me, that's your problem," right?
Aw. Yeah.
Um,
He
but
reminds
it
me
was
of his
such a
dad a little bit and how smart you are, and I think you can be
yeah, a
stubborn
little
too.
stubborn, yeah. That's my boy. Um, and he went through school, his classmates loved him. We had at his elementary school here, they had like, a experimental multi-age class where 2 teachers took this group of kids from the time they were in kindergarten and taught them all the way through 6th grade.
Oh,
So you had
wow.
kids of all different ages in the classroom, um, where, they could sort of settle into their level of learning where they were, getting the appropriate amount of challenge, It's a really neat concept and, certain like, the continuity, I think, served Lane really well, and then, his sister was able to be in the same class with him there for, like, 4 years too, and that,
Oh,
it
that's
was
nice.
was really, really great.
I would imagine that
Um,
would be really good for him because it sounds like people might assume he's not intelligent based on the way he looks. So it would be good to have someone that knew what he knew and what he was capable of and could take him farther instead of having to take months to explain, no, no, my child is smart. You need to push him. He's stubborn, push him, get him to learn more. So I could see the benefit for him with that
yeah,
situation.
and I gotta tell you, we have a really good school district here, and, everybody there was just super helpful. Um, helping him all along the way. Special needs kids, they have a IEP, that's individualized education plan. So, every year we would all get together and talk about how he'd been doing this year and what was, his plans for the next year. And just those services are so essential. And it worries me that stuff like that's getting cut, because IEPs,
Yes.
that's all U.S.
Yes.
Department of Education.
I'm very worried about that
Uh,
too. Yes. I'm going to
yeah,
have a next, I think it's next week. I'm going to have the president of the Indiana Public School Coalition on to talk about what we need to do to protect public schools. So we're working on that in Project Next. That's one of our big goals. We need to do all we can to save public education. 90% of Hoosier children attend public schools. So it's being defunded for the last 20
yeah.
years. It just keeps
And
getting worse and worse.
there's kids out there like Lane who are smart and capable, and they just need a little extra help. And
In a public
I'm deeply
school,
worried.
yeah, a
I,
public school, a charter school, they're not going to take students like your son. They're going to say, we don't have the facility, we don't
yeah,
have the people, we don't have the
yeah,
money. So they're going to say no. And they can, they're allowed to do that. Whereas public schools take everyone unless they cannot, unless they're
they're legally
violent or
required to
whatever.
do so. Yeah,
They're legally required to take your child and teach them. So when we continuously dump money that should go to public schools to these private and charter, we're really hurting a large group of people that do not get assistance from charter and private schools. So yeah, yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
he's getting older. He's got a good school. You're spending more time with him. Tell me about, I just heard that he was able to go to college. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so yeah, Lane made it all the way through high school. He graduated on time. He, got his regular diploma just like any other kid. And uh yeah, he took a gap year.
Aw.
Didn't go backpacking around Europe, but he kind of took some time to figure out what he wanted to do. And then he enrolled in Ivy Tech. And he had gone through his first semester. He got good grades. I was helping him get there. Like you said, I would go, multiple times a week and sort of uh, help him at lunchtime. And but he got his first real power chair before um, going to Ivy Tech, and he was just really starting to gain a sense of independence, um, and really come into his own. And and that's why God, it's just so heartbreaking that he was, when he got sick when he did, because he was just really starting to
He
grow
was
into like
19.
into in 19 years old. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
So yeah, but last, it would have been December of 23. Um Toward the end of that, his first semester there, and it's like finals week, and he wasn't feeling really well. He was just kind of lethargic, and wanted to go to bed early, and that was not him. He wasn't go to bed early kind of kid. But um we didn't think a whole lot of it. It's finals and a long semester, and it's December, and it's just kind of a blah time of year. So yeah, we didn't think a whole lot of it. And then that following Monday, he and I both had our regular annual checkup. So we went to the doctor's office. We're getting our vitals and whatnot taken, and they get to him, and his oxygen was really low. They put that little O2 sensor on your finger, like really, really low. And so the doctor was concerned and sent called for an ambulance from the doctor's office to
Oh,
come
wow.
pick him up. And so, they took him in an ambulance, and I followed behind them, and we got to the hospital, and it turns out he had walking pneumonia, um, or rolling pneumonia in his case, for probably a couple weeks. And
Oh,
like, he was just a friggin' champ because like we didn't even really know, you
he was
know?
just a little tired and wanted to go to
It,
bed early. Yeah.
yeah. So it had gotten to where like his lungs were pretty full up, and they had to intubate him that night, and put the tube in his lungs to give him oxygen and help him breathe. And um we wound up being in the hospital for 3 weeks
Oh,
to clear out his lungs and just give him time to recover. And he he worked, and he got himself back up to strength, and to the point where we were ready to go home. And they sent him with uh like an oxygen mask, and not a CPAP exactly, but something like that
to help him
for
breathe, to help him get enough
for
oxygen.
sleep.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, they didn't send us home with a suction machine, which I should have, in retrospect, probably insisted
I
upon.
mean, but you got to give yourself some grace. You're not a doctor.
And, yeah, but
Ah, yes, yes. So that sounds
so
very frustrating to realize after the fact this machine might have helped him recover. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine the fury that you feel.
yeah, yeah, that's one of the feelings, right? But he worked so hard, 3 weeks, and he was just itching to get out of there. Just wanted to come
Oh,
home.
yeah,
So
I'm
tired being in
sure.
the hospital. And so we came home, and um, gave him a shower that night. He hadn't had a like real shower in weeks. So it was like the best thing ever. He really enjoyed it. And got to sleep in his own bed, right? And had the best sleep he's had in weeks. So we'd been home for like less than 24 hours. And I'm doing some work around the house, doing dishes, starting laundry. Our laundry, or washer and dryers out in the garage. I'm out there like moving a load over. I come in, and I hear him like gurgling. So he had some like mucus he was trying to get up or something. And I'm like, well, oh shit, what am I gonna do? If we had had some suction, I could have, we could have taken care of this like super easy. But so I'm like, oh shit, I'm running around. Like in my panic, I'm like, okay, I grabbed one of his feeding tubes and ripped the little port off the end and tried to like put that down his throat and suck things up myself. And um oh, that was after shit. Well, you know, he's gurgling. I'm running around to try and find something, and I come back in the room, and he had passed out. And I pick him up out of his chair. I get him out of his bed. I'm like, come on, buddy. No, no, no. And I'm giving him mouth to mouth. And I've got my daughter is home. This is still over.
How old was
This
she?
isn't, no, this isn't over Christmas break. She was just home from school that day. And I'm
How old was she at this time?
15. And I had her call 911. So, I'm trying to get him breathing again while she's on the phone with 911. They're here in less than 10 minutes, and come in and start doing their thing. And when they first got here, um, they still had a heartbeat, they still had a pulse, but it was weak and it dipped right away. And um, they were doing chest compressions and stuff on him here in our house. Um, and I don't know what you know about CPR and whatnot, but if you're to the point where you're actually doing chest compressions, they're it's kind of like last chance,
That's what, yeah,
things.
I've had many CPR classes because I used to be a teacher. And
Yeah,
yes, if
and
if you're at that point where the heart has stopped and you're
things are
doing
not
the
looking good.
chances of them coming back are rare. It happens sometimes, but it's not like in the movies where it happens like most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but they got his heart going, and they got him breathing with assistance, got him in the hospital, right back to the ER, right back to the same doctors that were taking care of him the 3 previous weeks. And um they we didn't know at that point when we first got there, like, if he was gonna wake up, because he was without oxygen for a while. So there was some brain swelling, right? And they have to wait a couple days for that to come down to see if recovery is possible. And they had this whole big, like, cooling system set up on the bed, to keep the body temperature low. That's supposed to help. He had all sorts of you know brain, like, wires connected to his head and stuff, and they were monitoring for brain activity. And just after, God, that would have been a Wednesday maybe, but by Saturday they he wasn't gonna ever be the same. They said he had no brain activity,
Oh, so
basically.
sorry.
So his body was there with us, but he was gone. And so we had to make the decision,
Oh, wow.
like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna try and keep his body alive, or let him go? And we we all knew immediately what the thing to do was. We had to let him go. I wouldn't want him trapped like that. Um, so that Sunday, that's what we did. We had the whole family in the room with us. Aunts, uncles, grandmas, and everybody came to say goodbye. And
Oh.
we had him take all that junk off of him, and he just slipped away.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for telling me in detail what happened, because I had asked you and we had talked about it before, but you gave a very brief summary. I just
Yeah.
knew he was in the hospital for pneumonia. He came home and then got worse, and I assumed he died at home. I didn't know it was this prolonged, terrible, and also beautiful that you were able to say bye, but just terrible thing. The trauma that your family, that you and your daughter, and your what that you went through, um, it's something that will always stay with you. It's not anything that's going to go away. You're not going to wake up one day and not have the pain of this loss, right?
Oh, never. I mean, the grief is ongoing. It hasn't subsided. I don't know if it will subside. I've
And you can let us know. You can take us through
yeah.
your grief. If it evolves and changes, you can talk about it, because It's just not talked about enough in our culture. We're very scared of deep pain, of deep loss. I think I'm just going to take you through what I think some people that haven't experienced this, what
Yeah.
we're thinking. So I'm someone that loves you and cares about you and your family, and my initial response might be, "Don't talk about it because it'll make Scott sad." But the reality is, you're already sad, and not talking about it is hard. Is that correct? Can you take me through? We're thinking, "Don't talk to you, Scott. We don't wanna bring it up. We're so sorry. We don't wanna be that sad. We don't wanna talk
Yeah.
about it." Can you take us through what would actually support you as you are very newly going through this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, like, the even on good days, and listen, most days anymore, they're good. They get easier as you go. But even on the good days, like, all it takes is like one trigger, right? Just like you got to see like one thing. Maybe
So
I
you see
walk by
one
and
thing that reminds you of your child,
yeah,
maybe you
you
see
could,
a little boy in a wheelchair. Yeah, anything that's
yeah, it could be
reminding
anything.
you?
You could
Right.
hear a song or like
Oh,
see something that he enjoyed, or just yeah, anything could remind me of like those times we spent together. And um, yeah, and grief, I feel like, is not just sadness. There's a lot like to unpack with grief. It's like, yes, sadness, but also uh like there's guilt in there, right? Um all your five stages of grief, right? You
well,
got all those.
you're
You got your
angry
anger in
about the
there.
what if you had the suction device? What if you could have prevented the lack of oxygen? That's
Right,
gotta be
yeah.
like
No,
a
I'm guilty
fury
at my yeah, I
inside.
feel
Yeah.
guilt that I didn't think of that I didn't insist upon it, or just that even then, like, that I couldn't save him. I um and I know that's not accurate, but you can't help but feel that way, you
I've
know?
talked to you about that on the phone before. We've talked about this before, about I get it. Of course you have the guilt. I understand you shouldn't. And you understand as a smart person you shouldn't, but you can't help it because that could have saved him. I don't see how you could have known. I mean, I imagine multiple parents having the same thing happen because we're human beings and you're not a freaking doctor. So
Yeah.
maybe if a nurse or a medical professional was the parent in this situation, they would know to insist on that suction device. But I just don't see, and if you repeated this scenario 1,000 times,
Yeah.
I don't see how it would produce a different outcome. And I know you know it, but at the same time, that thing could have saved your child. So
Yeah.
I get it. I can't say I wouldn't be the same if I was in your situation.
Yeah, but, it's not productive. It doesn't
Yeah, it's
make
not
things
productive.
better, and
Right.
it won't bring him back. So,
No.
like, I really feel like the best thing to do now is celebrate the time we had with him and remember him, and um try to honor his memory by living our best lives and making him proud, and
And I wanna
doing
talk about
something that
that
would
for a
make him
minute.
proud of us. Yeah.
My, I have not lost a parent, I've lost grandparents. My husband
Yeah.
lost his dad, who was, he had type 1 diabetes and had lost his legs and was in a
Oh, man.
wheelchair, and his mom did a lot to care for him.
Yeah.
And, I went through, this was during the pandemic of when he died, it was 3 years ago, trying to comfort my mother-in-law that I'm close to and love very much, and my husband and my brother-in-law, my husband's older brother. And I realized, if you don't feel the bad, if you don't process, we had anger because he didn't get the best hospital care because it was during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Anger at insurance not covering better facilities, things for him to recover. um, we saw my father-in-law just say, "I'm done," and we knew he was going to die because he couldn't take the pain and the suffering any longer, and he had taken so much suffering, and we realized if we don't process that and think about it, and the 4 of us talk about it and support one another, we don't get to the good places where we think of all the beautiful memories of my father-in-law. And so you I see you doing a really good job of going to the dark places. Telling this story right now has to help you think of all the good times with your beautiful son. And do you think that that has been one of the biggest ways you've been able to cope and function as a functioning adult, doing a lot of good things for the world?
Um, it it keeps my brain busy. It keeps me from thinking about things too much. Um, keeps I mean, keeps intrusive thoughts at bay.
And you're talking about that you're doing extra work so that you're not constantly thinking about your son died. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and maybe it's just like the work that I do and what I find interesting is to uh get into politics and talk about the things that affect other people's lives. And I hope I'm doing some good in the world, but
You
like
definitely
I
are.
don't know. I didn't
You definitely are doing good in the world. Um,
I didn't
I
seek to do that.
I've
Like,
listened to
yeah,
a few podcasts of authors that have wrote books about grief.
yeah,
And one thing you mentioned to me is you felt guilt at people were putting pressure on you that you were so busy that you were doing this podcast extra, this show Who's Left, that you were taking a lot of time from your life doing this. And I kind of am like, they haven't lost a child, those people saying that to you. I know that they mean well and they're trying to help, but what the experts that have written books about grief say, if you're processing your grief in a way that is not hurting you or others,
yeah,
and you're not stuck in a stage, like you're not stuck in the anger stage, you're not stuck in the denial stage. You're going through processes to accept what happens, but at the same time, you're putting a lot of brain power on this show. That's not bad. That is 100% perfectly fine. I have not lost a child. Why am I gonna judge you or say maybe you're not doing, and we're doing it culturally because culturally like, ooh, maybe
yeah.
this is bad. But I'm just telling you from what the research shows, you're dealing with your loss in a very healthy way. And I'm really proud of you because you probably had a lot of options. You could have became an alcoholic. You could have become addicted to some drugs that would make you not feel the pain. But instead of doing something that would hurt you and your family and your body, you're trying to do good things for Indiana. You're interviewing top people in Indiana and trying to encourage growth and better for my kids and and everybody. And that's such a beautiful thing. And I hope that you realize that you chose in your darkest moments to grieve in a way that tries to help society. And I just think that is very beautiful. And that is one of the things I love most about you. Um, it's just so beyond beautiful of you. And you probably don't stop and think,
Well,
wow, that was really noble of me because
sorry.
you're not doing that. You're not someone that praises themselves. Tim Peck doesn't give himself a lot of praise either. And I'm like, let's stop and look at what you've done, Tim. But I can say it. I can say it as someone who's a friend of yours. Um, it's incredible. Um, and I think you and your wife I know have had a hard time, and I think your wife understands it, and I think that's beautiful that she's like, "Yes, take time away from me and do this show because it's helping you in your grief." I think that's beautiful. Um, so what can we do for you? I'm a friend of yours. I want to help. That's why we're doing this show. I love you. I love your wife. I
Yeah,
love your family. I'm trying to help you and at the same time help other people that are either going through their own grief or that love someone that has lost someone close to them. What can you tell us? What can we do for you? And then maybe that would help other people that love people that
Yeah.
have lost someone.
I'll tell you what I like is just to talk about Lane, to talk about what a special guy he was and how proud I was of him. And but also like, I'm going to be okay, right? What I want is for people to understand that we need services for folks with disabilities, for special needs kids, that we can't go cutting those things all willy-nilly because people like really depend on them. And also I just like support the young men in your lives cuz it's hard out there for them right now. They're under a lot of pressure
The culture
from
of we don't ask how they're feeling. They shouldn't talk about their feelings. They shouldn't cry. They shouldn't show
yeah,
any emotion other than a little bit of happiness, and then they can be angry. Those are pretty much the two emotions men in our culture are appropriately allowed to share. Um, that's what you're talking about?
well, yeah, that certainly but also I don't know, I've got this fatherly energy still, like, to I was raising a young man into this world, and, I know a lot of bad people are trying to suck our young men in to hate groups and such, and, I kind of feel a responsibility, for those young men now. It's like, well, I've got this fatherly energy that I was going to pour into my son, and now I kind of want to like adopt that generation of kids and make sure they turn into healthy, well-adjusted, you know, socially focused young men.
Yeah, working on the community together, being open and honest, and just benefiting the whole community and not
Yeah,
being so alone. I'm worried about how alone a lot of our men and boys in our country are feeling right now, and
yeah,
so that helps them lead to a bad path online and to blame others for their loneliness. Um,
yeah. And
and
another thing is
if
just
we
like,
really just cared
yeah,
about the men and the boys, if we just loved them and listened to them and gave them more time to express their feelings and gave them a safe place where we weren't going to yell at them for their feelings, we could stop so much of the hate that is happening online, which then leaks into society. You're so right. And I think you've already done a lot of good work. One of my favorite episodes you did on Who's Left is when you interviewed Jared. What's his full name?
oh, Jared Yates Sexton,
Yes,
yes,
I get it
yeah,
mixed up. I get the names mixed up. About his book, which he talked about with toxic masculinity. I thought that
yeah,
was a really beautiful conversation. The two of you were so open and honest in your thinking. Sometimes I'm catching myself thinking sexist thoughts because culturally I've been brought up that way. Like you say it, and then you're like, I have to identify it. And it was so helpful to me as a woman to understand, oh, and it's not men's fault. It's not like we should be blaming our boys for thinking things that aren't true about women. It's our culture. And
yeah,
you are already doing this. I have already learned a lot of things just from your show and from being your friend. So I hope that you can feel a sense of I'm taking my grief and I'm taking my love for I miss my son so much, and I'm gonna pour that energy and that love into the community. It's helping. I already see it helping. You've already helped me. I hope that that helps you with your grief.
Thank you. And another thing, Sarah, we talked about what can help me, deal with my emotions
Yes.
around all this. And I think another thing we do have to do is have grace with everybody, because like I carry this grief around with me everywhere, everybody's carrying something.
Yes.
And like you said, we're not really taught to talk about these things. We are very much a stuff it down and keep grinding culture. And but we have to remember, everybody is carrying around something. A lot of people who we might not think we might be angry at for the things they express publicly. A lot of those folks are carrying around grief and loss. Especially, look, we talk about MAGA folks a lot in these parts, right? Um, I think there's a lot of grief and loss in that community, and that people are angry about, and maybe justifiably so. That
Yeah,
that
I
they don't
see
have
a
a
lot of
healthy
that.
outlet for
Yeah.
for those, grief for. There's been a lot of death in that community. Overdose has hit like rural areas particularly hard, and disinvestment from government and the private sector.
Yeah,
People grieve for the
hopelessness
loss of their
feeling.
communities.
Yeah, we have that in Palmyra. My town people that I love very much are just like, what has the government done for me? I'm not going to do anything to help the community because they don't care about me. And it's like, well, that just continues the cycle of we're not putting love into our community to make it better. I so agree with what you said. And again, that episode with Jared really covered this at the end, where I really feel like men, particularly, have a self-hatred inside of them, and they think like they don't deserve better,
Yeah,
and they don't admit that or say that, but they take it out in being hard on themselves and then being hard on others. And we see that with the things that come out of their mouth, or with the things that they type online, or how judgmental they are on other people or celebrities or women, just how judgmental they are. And it's because they're so judgmental and hard on themselves. And if they just stopped and thought about it and gave themselves grace, like you said, we are not perfect human beings, but most of us, we're trying, and we're trying to be good. And with the allowance of it's okay to mess up, whereas in our culture
yeah,
we like to persecute and just go after and attack anybody that makes a mistake, which is so harmful. Instead, if we can be like, oh, I'm allowed to make a mistake, I'm human, let's let that go,
yeah,
then you can forgive other people for their mistakes better. I love, one of my favorite men that I don't know in real life is Dax Shepard of the
yeah,
podcast Armchair Expert. He's an actor and has a successful podcast. He was a former addict. He was sexually abused as a child, and he talks about it. And he did so many wrong things as an addict, and he's been able to forgive himself, and it's made him one of the most empathetic males I've ever listened to,
yeah,
you know? And I see that from you too. You're very willing to accept people for their faults, and I think it's because you're working on yourself and forgiving yourself. I got a lot more empathetic when I had my suicidal thoughts a year ago, and then I realized I was way too hard on myself, and I was letting people treat me bad. And once I forgave myself, I was just like, it was amazing. It was just like, bam, all of a sudden I
yeah,
could forgive others. So forgiving yourself first, I think, is the first step towards empathy and being willing to just even listen to your story, Scott, because
yeah,
I'm over here crying and blowing my nose listening to it. It's painful, but it's also loving, and I'm gonna grow as a person just listening to your stories, so just being willing to care about someone's deep loss and asking them, and then also being willing to listen to the good stories. So, Scott, feel free to call me anytime and say, I just saw this boy that reminded me of Lane and I want to tell you about him. Did you know this funny thing he did one time? I would love to hear it. And I think a lot of your family and your friends would also love to hear it. So I encourage you to call someone in those moments and share it because that helps you remember it. And you don't want to forget the good memories, right? You want to keep those until your dying day. So
Yeah,
share those things. And as a friend of yours, you can call me anytime. You can text it to me. It's the middle of the night, text it to me. I'll wake up and read it in the morning and it'll make me happy. So yeah. Any
yeah,
final thoughts? We're about ready to end here. I'm just so proud of you and thankful for you doing this live. This is a brave thing you did. Thanks for doing it with me. We knew it was gonna be hard. We
yeah,
talked about it a couple
yeah.
days ago. We knew there was gonna be tears. Um, I'm so proud of you. Is there any final thoughts?
Really, I do. I want to say, I think the takeaway is just to have grace with people because everybody is carrying something around with them. Everybody's carrying a heartbreak with them somewhere, and you don't know what it is that um could trigger them, and just to break to send someone falling apart. And it could be anything, and we do have to just be human with each other, I think, because life isn't fair to
Life is not
anybody.
fair. It is not fair
Um,
this happened to you. I'm so sorry it happened to you.
I you know, in a way, I wish it could have been me, right? Like it's not fair. He was just the most innocent, sweetest kid, right? Like I've done bad things in my life, right? Like if I could have, I if I was to be punished for those, I could accept that. But no one deserved to suffer like that less than him.
And he suffered his whole life. And he was a beautiful human. Like, it sounds like you just did a really good job. You're not perfect. You were in a really stressful situation, but you did a good job just loving him unconditionally and raising a good man. And it is so sad because it sounds like he was a good, smart kid that had to work so much harder to just be alive, and it made him so exceptional, and I think that's
Yeah,
another hard thing that you're dealing with. This was an exceptional man that you were raising, that you had seen since day 1 suffer.
yeah.
It does add another, this isn't a black and white issue. It does add another piece to your grief. I see it now better since you explained it to me. My heart goes out that the world doesn't have Lane in it. I feel that now since you shared it. So thank you for sharing that with me because I think that shared knowledge will hopefully help you some.
He was a bright light to everybody he knew, and um, he might not be with us still, but that light still shines.
The good that he put into the world doesn't go away. That's something else I learned with the loss of my husband's dad. He was a science teacher and he was a good man and he raised my husband well and my husband
Yeah,
treats me well because of of the love that his parents had for themselves and for their kids, and that doesn't go away. The love that he put into the world, think about you being so exceptional. A big part of that is because of your son. That doesn't go away. And now you're doing all these good things for society and for Indiana because of your son. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
thank you, Sarah. It means so much. Yeah,
I'm so glad we're friends. I just also want to just point out in our culture, it's frowned upon for people of the same age to be friends with the different genders, like I'm happily married and you're happily married. And I just want to say this year I've become friends with more men that are my age, and it's been very valuable to my life. It helps me to be a better wife, honestly, because I learn more about men and
Yeah.
what they need. And so I just want to point out culturally, it's okay for us to have close friends that are different genders, and monogamy's a choice. I very happily make it every day. And I also openly love and care about you, Scott, as a friend. I care about Tim. I now have a new friend with Brian. It's been really neat because I used to think that was culturally inappropriate just a few years ago, and I don't think that way anymore. And think about how much my life has benefited having you in it. It's benefited so much. So, I just wanna also say that that's something we could work on in our culture is just acknowledging it's okay to have friends of the opposite sex and to be close to them at the same time being happily in a relationship, with someone else. So, yeah, I think it just takes some maturity and openness and talking about it, you know?
It's important to just be emotionally open. I think it just makes us better people in general.
Yeah, and I talked to my husband about you, and he knows that I care about you, and he cares about you. He's not as close of friends with you. I don't think you've met in person with him, but
I
he
have not
he
met Chris in
he
person, no,
loves
but
you just because I talk about you, and he knows what you've gone through and he's also listened to your show. So, he cares about you that way, and that's really beautiful. I like seeing this other man that knows that I'm close to you and likes it and appreciates it and cares about you too. It's just all a beautiful, beautiful thing that I think we can help push the culture with.
I think so too, Sarah.
I'm really proud of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Um, I know that it's been a really difficult year ever since this happened. But
Yeah.
lately it's been really hard on you, and that's why we decided to do this show today. And one of my goals is that this helps you with your day-to-day life because it hurts me to know you're going through that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're friends of Scott and you know him personally, please talk to him about Lane. Please ask him, how's his mental health? Scott's open and he's totally fine with sharing how he's feeling. And also, Scott's brave enough to, if he gets teary eyed, he'll be okay.
Yeah.
He's strong enough in his masculinity to be able to handle that. So it's okay if you're friends with Scott. Go ahead and ask him how he's doing. Give him a hug. Let him know you're there for him. Say, I want to hear good stories about Lane. I don't want to forget. I wasn't around him as much as you were. I want to know stuff. I never saw him. I've never met him. I want to know more stuff about him, Scott. Please tell me. And I think that we can help. And then reach out to those of you that have, if you know someone that's lost someone, just have a discussion. Call them up and say, can we talk about this? Are you okay? Are you at a place where we could talk about your grief and if I could help you as a friend? Don't be scared to have those conversations. I would imagine most people would appreciate it and it would help them. Because
I think so too. Yeah.
I'm worried about men and our high suicide rates. I'm really worried about that. I'm worried about boys, teenagers. And I know that if we just weren't scared to ask our men in our lives how they're feeling, if we just open up to them more, that does so much.
If we don't do something productive with these feelings, if we don't let them out and channel them in a productive way, it just tear us apart on the inside.
Um, Please share this, everyone listening, with anyone that might benefit from it. If you follow any type of loss, grief groups, or there's any people that you personally know, you can share this show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. Um, the goal is to help as many people as possible. That's the whole reason we started Project Next. And there's lots of different ways we're trying to help. And the mental fitness is really just trying to support one another mentally. We need to be as mentally fit as possible to be able to survive and thrive in a hard society, which I think a lot of us are feeling right now. So yeah,
Yeah. It's difficult times. We gotta put on our own oxygen masks first, right?
we got to take care of ourselves so that we can work together. Thanks for doing this with me. I'll say thank you 1,000 gazillion times. I'm just so appreciative of you being so brave. Um, it is a brave thing. I mean, this is what this is what real bravery looks like. That's what Brian Zimmerman keeps saying on his show. He's a special forces veteran. He's got giant muscles and he's like, this is the bravery, me talking about my mental struggles. And it's also
Yeah.
very attractive quality for healthy people. We want to be around people that are mentally fit. And so just know if you're a man listening to this and you're lonely and you haven't reached out to someone, if you your partner, a healthy partner wants someone being open and honest. It is attractive quality. So if you can be brave enough to say how you feel and get better mentally, it will help you in your relationships. I mean,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if anybody wants to talk, to me, reach out. I am not hard to find.
Do that
Let's
soon.
see.
I
Yeah.
think
My
eventually you're gonna get, too big to be able to reach everybody, but for right now, you're at a good level of people knowing you. So, yes, reach
Yeah.
out to Scott Aaron Rogers. He's on Facebook. He's on the Who's Left with the HHOOSLEFT.
Yeah, my
Reach
website's
out.
right there on the screen, whosleft.us. My email address is scott@whosleft.us. So, you can get hold of me that way, or yeah, find me on social media, DM
and
me.
and
I want to talk.
and maybe, somebody else that had a loss might wanna do a show with you where the 2 of you talk, or if you wanna talk with me, like, reach out. This is, we're gonna do more episodes on grief because other people have dealt with their grief in different ways. So, let us know if you wanna talk, but that's what happened with Brian. Brian watched a show and then reached out to me, and I met him, and we talked, and then now we have a show because 'cause we're just trying to help people. So, yeah. Um Okay, I think we covered a lot in this episode, and I really hope we helped people with this topic because, again, we're so scared to talk about grief, and we don't need to be scared to talk about it because when we talk about the really sad things, we also open up to talk about the really good things. And it's okay
Yeah.
to feel all the emotions. We don't need to be scared of sadness, we don't need to be scared of grief. It is a process. We all lose. We all lose things. Life is precious and it is not forever. And we lose animals. We lose humans and it is hard on us. So we need to support one another better. I still think we're dealing with COVID. We haven't really appropriately dealt with COVID since it went so
We've never
political.
appropriately grieved all those people. Yeah.
It went so right and left hate each other instead of we should grieve and comfort those of us that lost loved ones due to COVID. Um, so this is a topic that I'm hopeful will help people. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for having me here, Sarah, giving me opportunity to talk about this with everybody. And thanks for those of you who are listening and who send out your love and hugs. I do appreciate it
Yeah,
immensely.
Carly, who's on the show, says she's sorry for your loss. Matthew, I don't know if that's a friend of yours, but he said
That's a
love and
friend of
hugs
mine. Matt's one
goes
of
out to
my
you,
my
brother
my oldest
Scott.
friends in the world. I love you,
Aw.
brother.
Love to you, Matthew. Thanks for watching and caring about Scott. That means a lot to me because I don't live next to you. I live like an hour and a half away from you. So that makes me happy that you've got friends and family. And all right. Thanks for sharing the show if you can. And I will be on today's Friday. I'll do a Monday episode with Brian Zimmerman, Special Forces veteran, and we'll be talking about 9/11 and him starting the training process for being a Green Beret, which is very intense and hard, and only a few people can handle it. So that should be pretty fascinating. I can't wait to get into the details of that journey. And then I've got a bunch of episodes with people trying to make Indiana better. So that's coming up next week too. So love you all. Have a great day. And Scott, can't wait to do this again with you and talk about all kinds
Anytime,
of
Sarah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody. Have a
Love
great day.
y'all. Love
Love
you,
you
Sarah.
guys.